The old man's hands trembled as he reached for his wallet, only to find it empty. The cafe had gone quiet. A few customers watched, some impatient, some embarrassed for him. And just as he began to whisper that he would come back tomorrow to pay, a young waitress stepped forward and said softly, "It's already taken care of." What happened after that would change both their lives forever. Before we continue, if you believe small acts of kindness can create big miracles, make sure to subscribe to Kindness Teles. Like this video and share your thoughts in the comments, because stories like this remind us that even the smallest gesture can mean everything to someone. The waitress's name was Emily, and she had been working at Maple Street Cafe in a quiet Ohio suburb for almost 3 years. The cafe wasn't fancy. It had chipped wooden tables, a bell above the door that jingled every time someone walked in, and the comforting smell of fresh coffee that clung to your clothes long after your shift ended. Emily liked it that way. It felt safe. Predictable. She was 24, living in a small apartment above a hardware store, and juggling 2 jobs to help her mother pay medical bills after a long battle with arthritis. Every dollar mattered. She packed her lunches. She walked to work to save gas. Some nights she counted coins from a jar just to make sure she could cover rent. But no matter how tired she was, Emily had a habit of smiling at every customer like they were the most important person in the room. It wasn't fake. She just believed that people carried invisible burdens, and sometimes the only thing you could offer them was warmth. The old man had started coming in about a month earlier. He always chose the table by the window, ordered a small black coffee, and sat quietly for hours with a folded newspaper. His coat was worn at the elbows. His shoes looked polished but old. He never complained. Never asked for anything extra. Emily noticed that he counted his coins carefully each time he paid. She noticed the way his hands shook slightly when he lifted the cup. She noticed that he often stared out the window longer than he read the paper, as if he were waiting for someone who never arrived. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, the cafe was nearly empty. Emily was wiping down the counter when she saw him patting his coat pockets again and again. His face turned pale. He looked at the cup in front of him, then at the register, then back at his empty wallet. He stood slowly and approached the counter. His voice was thin. He explained that he must have misplaced his money and promised he would bring it tomorrow. He even offered to leave his watch as collateral, a simple silver piece that looked older than he was. The manager wasn't there. Emily could see the shame in his eyes. It wasn't about the $3. It was about dignity. Without hesitating, she opened her own tip jar, pulled out a few crumpled bills, and told him it was already paid. She said it lightly, like it was no big deal. She even joked that coffee always tasted better when someone else paid for it. For a moment, he just stared at her. His eyes were sharp, not fragile like his body suggested. He asked why she would do that. Emily shrugged and said that everyone deserves a warm cup of coffee, especially on a rainy day. He nodded slowly, thanked her in a voice that sounded steadier now, and walked out into the gray afternoon. Emily didn't think much of it after that. She had tables to clear and orders to deliver. Life moved on. The next day, he returned and placed exact change on the counter along with an extra $1. He said it was for her kindness. She tried to refuse, but he insisted. Over the next few weeks, they spoke more often. He told her stories about traveling across the country decades ago, about building things from nothing, about losing his wife 10 years earlier. He never mentioned children. He never mentioned family. There was a loneliness about him that felt heavy. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the cafe windows orange, he asked her a question that surprised her. He asked what she would do if she had more money than she needed. Emily laughed and said she couldn't even imagine that. But after a moment, she admitted that she would open a small community center. A place where seniors could gather, read, play chess, drink coffee without worrying about coins. A place where no one would feel alone. He listened carefully, nodding, as if committing every word to memory. Then, one morning, he didn't come. A week passed. Then two. Emily found herself glancing at the door every time the bell jingled. She told herself he was probably sick. Maybe visiting family. But the table by the window stayed empty. Life, however, didn't slow down for her worries. Her mother's medical bills increased. The landlord mentioned a possible rent raise. Emily picked up extra shifts, coming home exhausted, her feet aching. Then one afternoon, a black car pulled up outside the cafe. It didn't fit the neighborhood. A tall man in a tailored suit stepped inside and asked for her by name. Emily's first thought was that something terrible had happened. Her heart pounded as he handed her a sealed envelope. He said he was representing a private estate and that she had been named in a letter. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a handwritten note in familiar shaky script. The old man wrote that their conversations had meant more to him than she realized. He explained that he had spent years searching for something genuine. Not investors. Not partners. Not people impressed by wealth. Just kindness without expectation. He revealed that he had built a technology company decades earlier and quietly sold it for billions. After his wife passed, he withdrew from the world, unsure whether goodness still existed without conditions attached. That rainy afternoon in the cafe had been a test, though not in the way she might think. He had deliberately left his wallet at home. He wanted to see how the world would respond to a simple need. Many places had turned him away in recent months. Some had laughed. Some had scolded him. She had simply helped. The letter continued, explaining that he had recently been diagnosed with a terminal illness. He didn't have much time left, and he had decided to direct a significant portion of his fortune toward causes that restored human connection. And he wanted her to be part of it. Enclosed in the envelope was a document establishing a foundation in her name, funded with more money than she could comprehend. Its mission was simple: create welcoming spaces for seniors and underserved communities, just as she had described that evening by the window. Emily felt the room spin. She looked up at the suited man, who gently confirmed that everything in the letter was real. The old man had passed away peacefully 3 days earlier. Tears blurred her vision. She hadn't even known he was that sick. She hadn't had the chance to say goodbye. In the weeks that followed, Emily's life transformed in ways that felt almost unreal. Lawyers, planners, and advisors filled her small apartment with documents and plans. But she insisted on one thing: the foundation would operate exactly as he described. No luxury offices. No grand galas. Just real spaces for real people. Within a year, the first community center opened in a renovated brick building just a few blocks from Maple Street Cafe. It had comfortable chairs, shelves of donated books, long tables for board games, and a coffee station that never charged a cent. On opening day, seniors from the neighborhood walked in hesitantly, unsure what to expect. Emily greeted each of them personally. She recognized the same guarded look she had once seen in the old man's eyes. Soon, laughter filled the rooms. Chess pieces clicked against wooden boards. Strangers introduced themselves and found common ground. The loneliness that had once sat heavy in the cafe's corner seemed to dissolve within those walls. Reporters eventually picked up the story of the mysterious billionaire and the waitress who paid for his coffee. But Emily always redirected attention. She said it wasn't about wealth. It was about noticing someone. It was about protecting a person's dignity when they needed it most. She kept one small reminder in her office: the silver watch he had tried to leave behind that rainy afternoon. The suited man had returned it to her, saying he would have wanted her to have it. Sometimes, late in the evening after everyone had gone home, she would sit by the window of the community center and think about how close she had been to ignoring him. She could have been too tired. Too busy. Too worried about her own bills. But kindness doesn't wait for convenience. The foundation expanded to other towns. More centers opened. Volunteers joined. Donations poured in from people moved by the story. Yet Emily never forgot the simple truth that started it all: $3 and a moment of compassion. The old man had been searching for proof that the world still had goodness in it. What he found was a young woman who didn't calculate generosity based on return. And in the end, the greatest gift wasn't the money he left behind. It was the reminder that every interaction holds possibility. Every stranger carries a story. Every small act can echo far beyond what we see. If there's one thing this story teaches us, it's that kindness is never wasted. You may never know who is watching. You may never see the full impact. But somewhere, someone could be waiting for a reason to believe in humanity again. So the next time you see someone struggling, remember that a cup of coffee, a warm smile, or a few dollars might mean more than you imagine. And if you have your own story of unexpected kindness, share it in the comments. Because when we tell these stories, we remind each other that the world is still full of quiet miracles, waiting to unfold.